A city rises from the jungle, stone pyramids cutting through mist. Then, centuries later, it's swallowed by green silence. The ancient Maya feel like a riddle, but their story isn't a single mystery. It's a long, human timeline of innovation, power, belief, and survival. In this video, we'll travel from the earliest Maya communities to the peak of classic-era supercities, and finally to the slow, uneven unraveling that emptied many southern capitals. No aliens, no prophecy hype, just what archaeology, inscriptions, and living Maya traditions reveal. Stay to the end, because the end of the Maya isn't where most people think it is. Long before the famous skylines of Tikal or Palenque, the Maya began as small farming communities in the humid lowlands and the cooler highlands of what's now southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras. By around 2000 BCE, maize, corn, was becoming the anchor of daily life, shaping diets, rituals, and the calendar of work. Villages formed near reliable water and fertile soils, trading stone, shells, and obsidian along growing networks. Over time, leadership emerged, first through influence and ritual authority, then through inherited power. The Maya story starts quietly. Fields, pottery, family lines, and sacred places, tiny seeds of what would become city-states. In the pre-classic period, those seeds turned into monumental ambition. Sites like El Mirador in Guatemala built massive temple complexes long before the classic-era celebrities. Imagine limestone pyramids the size of mountains, raised without metal tools, without beasts of burden, powered by organization, belief, and labor. Rulers linked themselves to the sacred world, performing public rituals that bound people to a shared story of creation and cosmic order. Roads, causeways, connected districts and neighboring centers. But it wasn't a unified empire. The Maya world was a mosaic, competing kingdoms, shifting alliances, and trade routes that carried prestige goods and ideas across jungles and hills. Then came the breakthrough that let the Maya speak to us across time. Writing. Maya scribes developed a sophisticated hieroglyphic system capable of recording names, dates, wars, marriages, tributes, history itself. Using bark paper codices and carved stone monuments called stelae, they fixed events to a precise calendar system. This wasn't just decoration, it was political technology. If a king could place his reign inside sacred time, tying his birth or victory to auspicious cycles, he gained legitimacy. When we read these glyphs today, we don't hear myths alone. We hear announcements, rivalries, boasts, grief, and lineage, real voices etched into stone. The classic period, roughly 250 to 900 CE, was the Maya's urban golden age. City-states like Tikal, Calakmul, Palenque, Copan, and Caracol competed like heavyweight powers. Their skylines were ceremonial. Steep pyramids, palace complexes, ball courts, and plazas designed for mass gatherings and public spectacle. Yet beneath that grandeur was a dense, managed landscape. Terraced hillsides, raised fields, reservoirs, and canals engineered to survive long dry seasons. The Maya didn't just live in the jungle, they redesigned it. At peak, some regions supported astonishing populations, with networks of smaller towns feeding and supporting royal capitals, an ecosystem of politics, agriculture, and belief. Religion wasn't a separate part of life. It was the operating system. The Maya viewed the world as layered: sky, earth, underworld, all connected through sacred mountains and caves. Kings and queens performed bloodletting rituals to communicate with ancestors and gods, not as spectacle alone, but as a duty that kept cosmic balance. The ball game, played in stone courts, could symbolize the struggle between life and death, day and night, order and chaos. Astronomers tracked Venus, the sun, and the moon with stunning accuracy, aligning temples and ceremonies to celestial cycles. For the Maya, time wasn't an arrow. It was a turning wheel, heavy with meaning. But the Maya were not peaceful mystics frozen in time. Their inscriptions record raids, captured nobles, burned cities, and long-running feuds. Two superpowers, Tikal and Calakmul, fought for influence through alliances and proxy wars. Victory meant tribute, prestige, and the right to claim cosmic favor. Defeat could mean humiliation on a stela, or a rival placed on your throne. And politics wasn't only male. Powerful royal women, regents and queens, appear in glyphs and sculptures, negotiating marriages and succession. The Maya world was a chessboard of kingdoms, each balancing diplomacy, war, and internal stability to survive another generation. So what happened when many southern lowland cities declined? The evidence points to stress stacking on stress. Paleoclimate records show periods of severe drought, especially in the late 800s. At the same time, populations were high, forests were heavily used for fuel and building lime plaster, and food systems faced pressure. When harvests faltered, rulers still had to project power, build, feast, wage war, hold the sky in place. Rivalry intensified. Trade routes shifted. Some cities fractured internally, while others fought neighbors for dwindling resources. The collapse wasn't a single disaster. It was a long destabilization, different in each region, unfolding over decades. And then, silence, at least in the stone record. In many southern centers, stelae stop being raised. Palaces show signs of abandonment. Some sites were left quickly, others thinned out over time, with people moving toward water, toward trade, toward safer alliances. The jungle didn't destroy these cities overnight. Nature simply reclaimed what humans stopped maintaining. What's haunting is the normality. Families packing, choosing routes, carrying traditions instead of monuments. Meanwhile, in other areas, Maya life continued. The story splits. Certain royal courts fade, but communities endure, adapting to new political realities. The world changes, but it doesn't end. If you follow the timeline north, you find transformation, not extinction. Post-classic centers like Chichen Itza and later Mayapan rose in the Yucatan, connected to wider Mesoamerican trade and new political styles. Architecture and iconography shifted. Influence flowed between regions. Coastal routes became more important. Goods like obsidian, salt, cacao, cotton, and feathers moved through busy networks. The calendar and writing continued, though fewer codices survived into modern times due to climate and later destruction. The Maya world didn't vanish. It reorganized, sometimes thriving, sometimes fractured, like a forest after a storm, growing back in a different pattern. Then came the Spanish invasion and the colonial era, another turning point often mistaken for an ending. Disease, forced labor, and violent campaigns devastated populations and reshaped societies across the region. Yet Maya communities resisted for centuries, negotiating, rebelling, and preserving language and identity. The last independent Maya kingdom, the Itza at Tayasal, wasn't conquered until 1697, long after the classic cities had declined. And even after that, Maya languages, textiles, ceremonies, and local governance endured. When archaeologists decode glyphs or map jungle ruins with LiDAR, they're not uncovering a lost people. They're uncovering chapters of a civilization whose descendants are still here. So the real arc of the Maya isn't rise, magic, and disappearance. Its beginnings in villages shaped by maize, the growth of rival city-states, the invention of writing that recorded their triumphs and tragedies, and a classic-era peak of engineering, astronomy, and art. Then, in the south, a complex decline driven by drought, warfare, political strain, and shifting trade, followed by reinvention in the north and persistence through colonial upheaval. The end wasn't a single date. It was a series of transitions, and survival is part of the story. If you want, next we can zoom into one city, Tikal, Palenque, or Copan, and tell its timeline like a thriller.